Fabulous. We're going to kick things off. First of all, kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome, everyone. I'm David Allison. I'm the Investment Director at the Akina Foundation, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of my organization and our partner, TDI, for the Pitch Olympics. So great to be part of this Social Enterprise World Forum. I know some of the people who have been most responsible for making this all happen and the work and effort that's gone into it. And it's just exciting to see it really all coming together. So I'm stoked to be part of it. I'm really excited we've got one of the many impact investing events attached to it. Akina has been supporting impact investment in New Zealand for a number of years now, and we've done that with the support of a lot of the people in this room, and also with the support of a number of our international friends and the people who've gone before us. So really great to acknowledge them and to have this event tonight. So yes, the Pitch Olympics. Most of you will know that the original 5 Olympic rings were fashioned after New Zealand, Australia, Taiwan, Sri Lanka, and the Netherlands. And those other countries are mostly just hanging on around the Olympic dream. That may not strictly be true, but since we haven't officially licensed the Olympics, I don't feel that I have to be honest about it. And to distract you from that blatant IP infringement, I shall talk about natural disasters. In the event of a fire, we should exit calmly through the marked exits. And in the event of an earthquake, please cover and hold and wait for instructions from the venue staff. The congregation point, should we evacuate, is outside the main front door, but out towards the end of the marquee where those fabulous lunches have been enjoyed. Less about the stuff we hope doesn't happen tonight, and more about the stuff that we are really enthusiastic about happening tonight. The plan is that there are going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen, they're all over there, but we're going to have 5 pitches from different organizations from all over the world, creating different types of impact, all of whom are seeking investment for growth, to grow both the business and the impact in tandem. At the end of each pitch, there will be time for some questions, but we can't facilitate that across the whole room. So we have established a panel of international expertise to handle the questions on all of our behalves. And it's my pleasure to introduce them to you. First up, we have Bessie Graham of TDI. Bessie has a long career in the support of social enterprise and impact in the more general sense. As the founding CEO of TDI, also a founder of Benefit Capital, she's worked on projects and with ventures that have had impact right across the world, particularly establishing and designing programs within Australia, across the Asia-Pacific, and right up through the UK. So a wealth of knowledge. We're proud to have her as a partner with Akina, and really glad to have you along. Next on my list is David Woods. If you just confirm you exist. David has an esteemed professional career with ABN AMRO and was formerly the general manager of Oiko Credit, one of the largest micro-lending portfolios in the world. He is now amongst other roles in New Zealand, partly because of being a consummate networker and connector. He is also the chair of the Impact Enterprise Fund, the fund that Akina is raising right now, along with our partners at New Ground Capital in the room, and Impact Ventures, also saw him come in the room. Yeah, we're really excited to be in market with that and making a difference, and we're proud to have David as the chair of that, and David as part of our panel tonight. And then last but not least is Rowan Yeoman, long time, I'll let you do that. The cat in the hat. He is a long-time supporter of Akina, contributed to our organization in a number of ways, the inventor of the social lean canvas, an investor in his own right, and the supporter of social enterprise and startup across the Startup Weekend programs and in his own personal time as a mentor, coach, worker, T-boy, shareholder, direct, the whole thing that you need to do when you're in startup. Wonderful. So they're going to be posing the questions to our teams. This isn't a Dragon's Den. This is not. This is more of a celebration. It's a positive event, and hopefully those of you in the room will be left inspired by some of the possibility and the wonder that these guys have already achieved, and some of the things they set out to achieve with more investment. But this is alongside an education and an inspirational event. We hope that this is indeed an investment event. And for that reason, I have to inform you that you are here by private invitation. Nothing that you hear tonight will be a representative of an offer of securities to the public. If you do wish to take up one of the opportunities that you see tonight, then we will expect you to demonstrate your qualification as an investor under relevant law. You should also consider your own local rules as you decide to undertake investments. And above all, nothing that you hear tonight represents financial advice from the Arkina Foundation, TDI, the Social Enterprise World Forum, Mark the AV guy. If this is how you're getting your financial advice, think again. But that's not what we're doing. So the investors in the room, we're going to run through those pitches and all the Q&A, and then our investors are going to be invited to an investor room at the end of the pitches, and that's going to facilitate more discussion amongst those funding organizations and individuals with the teams. The rest of you will be invited to take your inspiration to the Christchurch evening. And if you do have feedback, support, ideas of connections for the teams, that's not unwanted. There's sort of a quirk of the nature of how investment events are required to work. We can't bring all of you into the little room out the front there. But you can connect with these teams through the app or along the course of the forum. And I encourage you to do so if you've got a valuable connection to make. If you're in the room and you are an investor, you represent a funding organization, you're an investor in other things and prospectively moving into impact investment, and you're not holding a feedback form, then we would like to give one to you. Feedback form is going to serve a couple of purposes. One is the ticket of getting into that investor room. That's just a bit of functionality for us. But it's also a primary way for us to make contact with you after the event, connect you with the teams that you see here tonight. So the more feedback forms completed that we have here by the end of the night, the more successful I feel the event is. That's very important. But it's also how we will make connections after the event. Feel free to connect directly, share cards, all those usual things. We don't own any relationships, but we do encourage you to use the feedback forms as a primary method of that. There's some space on there for comments. We will aggregate, sanitize in the anonymizing sense those items and feed them back to the team. Okay. We are just about at the end of the announcements portion of the night, as you may well be pleased to hear. It is time to head towards the meat of the evening. So as I say, we've got 5 different teams here who've all gone through a process of selection. We've purposely aimed for a breadth of impact, and it's been really exciting to hear these stories and see them come together. And I think, again, if thinking about what the night's about, it's please make yourselves comfortable. The inspiration element here is really central, and what some of these teams have achieved already is extraordinary, and the idea of magnifying that with investment is hugely compelling. So I'm very pleased to introduce the first of our presenters for this evening, and it's Danny Den Hartog of Lend a Hand.
Darkness. Complete darkness. That is what 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are experiencing. They lack access to a basic need. They lack access to electricity. When I was in Uganda in June of this year, I saw with my own eyes that if you travel around in rural Uganda, that only 7% of that population has access. And you only see the flickering lights of these toxic kerosene lamps, and that is really devastating for the health of the population, and it causes a lot of CO2 emissions. So, when I was in Uganda, I met with a brilliant female entrepreneur called Patience, which you can see. Patience is running a nice small shop in a small village, in a trading center. And Patience is actually using solar energy to increase her business. Because of solar energy, she can actually keep her drinks refrigerated. So that's great, because all the other shops, they do not have that. And also her shop looks much more attractive simply because of her lighting, and she can stay open longer. So that's the power of actually making money do good. Because these solar panels that Patience is actually using are financed by a company called SolarNow that in turn has been financed via the LandHand platform. And I'm very pleased and very grateful that all of you came over and that I can talk to you about LandHand. So the opportunity is that in the world there's plenty of money. In the West there is 21 trillion, at least in 2014, of social capital available, whereas the funding gap for small and medium-sized businesses and of households seeking actually decent energy access, that gap is only 1,700 billion. So it is very easy to solve, but actually we are not connecting the dots. And I think that was also elaborately discussed this morning as well. So what is the solution there? So as LandHand, we offer an online impact investment platform where all of you can actually already invest starting from 50 euros or 50 pounds onwards. And with that money, basically you do good. And you also earn a decent financial return ranging between 3 and 6% as well. So it's really about a blended return. So how does it work? Basically, that's an online platform. So as a crowd, you basically invest in either the local partners that on-lend to local SMEs, or so small and medium-sized businesses, or you lend directly to solar businesses that are installing these life-changing systems on the rooftops of poor families in Africa, for example. So as a platform, we definitely have proof of concept. We have raised 19 million euros over the course of the last 4 years. We started in 2013. We have an average customer satisfaction of 9.2, which is based on hundreds of reviews by our existing investors, and we were Financial Product of the year 2015 in the Netherlands. We recently got a big support from UK Aid, which I will tell you a bit later on about, and we received a startup subsidy from the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And more importantly is if you look at the impact. So we have so far impacted the lives of over 1,800 entrepreneurs, and hereby creating nearly 3,500 jobs. And that's really what it's at our core, is to generate that social impact. So if you look at where is our impact, where are the impact areas? And we are actually geographically well spread out. We focus only on emerging markets. So we don't look at Western markets only for the fundraising, but the projects itself that are on the platform are from emerging countries ranging from Colombia up to Mongolia, from Kenya up to the Philippines. So here you can just see a selection of our partners. I'll not go into detail. So where is our niche actually? As I said, it's about a combination between financial and social return. And it is not that there are no platforms out there. There are plenty of platforms out there. But they typically focus on one or the other. And as we have heard during this beautiful conference, it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to do something which is in the middle, which talks about the blended return. But I think we have a brilliant opportunity here. And that proof of concept again is there. And there's really a nice space that we can occupy. So as a social enterprise and a certified B Corporation, we don't believe in a traditional way of scaling internationally. We believe in collaboration with others. And in the UK, we started working with a brilliant UK-based crowdfunder to set up a joint venture and a new platform which is backed by the Virgin Unite, which is the foundation of Richard Branson's Virgin's Group, and by UK Aid. So it's focusing specifically on empowering businesses that are installing these solar panels in Africa. So again, as an investor, you can invest up from £50 in this case onwards in this initiative. And we have only beta launched this in about 8 weeks ago, on the 1st of August. And we have raised already £450,000 from the British crowd in the first 8 weeks. So that was only a beta launch, and we will have a big press release and a big launch on the 5th of October. So for all people in the UK, please invest on the 4th of October, or you can already consider earlier. Of course, your capital is at risk. That is very important because obviously the local partners or the businesses, if they go bankrupt, you lose part or all your investment. So who's doing that? We have an experienced team, a financially driven team, but very socially conscious. So we have our CEO, actually has over 10 years background in investment management. We have a guy from Goldman Sachs, he has 13 plus years in fixed income. We have online specialists, corporate strategy people, and a lot of developers, since we are an online platform. And where we want to go, and I'm sorry something went wrong with this slide apparently. It looked a lot nicer, but I hope you can still read it. We are looking to empower 110,000 households by 2019. So that is almost 500,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa. And we want to create 20,000 jobs throughout the world. And for that, to achieve that, we need your support. At the moment, we have 2,700 investors on our Dutch platform. Let's face it, that is still peanuts. It's nice, but here in the audience, there are nearly 200 people. So I'm really hoping that we together can scale this and generate that impact. And how can you support here? So you can start as an ordinary investor. Everybody has 50 quid or 50 euro to invest. Or for foundations, family offices, corporates, etc. You're very welcome to become an institutional investor on the platform. And we are also very keen in terms of the de-risking, if you are willing to support some capital in either matching alongside the crowd so that we can start the campaigns at 50%, or that you can provide some first loss capital. That really helps with the funding speed and helps to catalyze the crowd in order to generate the impact. And in 2018 and beyond, we're definitely interested to scale to the Pacific and to fundraise here. So we are looking for marketing partners or anybody that's interested in scaling up this model in the Pacific. So thank you very much for your time. If there are questions, I'm very happy to answer.
He took a minute to start that as well. So to the panel, I'll give you a second to check that microphone works. Is the hand held up, Mark? Sorry. Yep.
Within your model, partnerships on the ground are obviously going to make or break how this actually works. So can you expand a little bit on how you're going to actually find and do some due diligence on those local partners and SMEs that you'll then be investing in?
Yeah. Thank you. Did everybody get the question? Yeah? It's a very good question. Indeed, the projects on the website are really important. So far, and I cannot knock on wood, we have been able to have 100% repayment to the crowd. So we haven't had any defaults at the moment, and I think that is partly because we really do a careful due diligence. So we go on site. Before we actually visit the country, we select around 3 to 5 partners, potential partners, who we then visit. We do that due diligence visit. We have an independent in-risk report that we have, which we also put on our website, alongside with all the investment information. And our team, we have an investment team of 3 people that are really screening all the relevant partners for that. I hope that answers your... yeah, thanks.
Awesome, wonderful pitch. Really, really impressive. Just in terms of your impact model, you talked about 3,485 jobs being created so far, and you talked about job creation as being sort of one of the impact goals. Yeah. Could you dig in a little bit more into your impact model? Is jobs the only number that you're tracking? And if so, which jobs for whom? How does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the question. So frankly speaking, we had a proposition about a year ago, which was only about mesofinance, so the missing middle finance and SMEs. But since then, we have repositioned ourselves to become a wider online impact investment platform covering the sustainable developments in general. So we have started by adding this solar direct loans or direct investments in solar businesses. And obviously that came with a lot of other social indicators and other impact areas that we are looking at. So we have a lot more than I just showed you. So we're using the GOGLA indicators. And we are looking at jobs created, the quality of the jobs, and we are doing a lot of qualitative stuff, visiting the ultimate beneficiaries, the entrepreneurs, first of all, if they exist, but more importantly, if that actually investment has helped them to generate more jobs. Because we heavily rely, of course, on the information from local partners, so we always have to do that cross-checking. And so that's kind of what we are at now. But we want to expand to water and sanitation projects, and that of course will come with additional indicators.
We can take one more if it's a quick question and a quickish answer. If I could ask you.
Sorry, I keep it
that
brief.
Works great. It's quite all right.
Gefeliciteerd, Danny. My comments and questions would be much more in the detail, having done this kind of lending myself. Yeah. What rates are you lending at? What are the rates to the end customer? Sure. Why Colombia versus the rest of the countries having a much lower GDP per capita? So I think in terms of the overall pitch you've given, I would simply be going into a lot of the details. You're pulling at the heartstrings well without going into what exactly you're doing and how it works.
Okay. I'm very happy to talk to you in the investor room later on.
Perfect. Exactly what it's for.
Can you quickly just answer that a little bit, though?
Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick about that quickly.
Yeah, sure.
30 seconds.
So we are extremely transparent on that. So our fee is on average 3.5%, and the crowd gets between 3 and 6%. So that is the rate in hard currency that the local partners are lending at, or the solar businesses.
Plenty of time to converse later, so I don't want to sort of start too many follow-ups. Apologies, panel. But in the meantime, we'll say thank you very much to Danny. Well done, mate. And so much of this is about timing, and as we sort of see the World Forum at this particular stage and some of the opportunity for impact investment now, which is a combination of movement on the investor side, the intermediary side, the venture side, there's a lot to be said about the magic of timing. And another organization that has found its timing, has gestated from an idea a long time ago and really found its place in time. Good Market is one of those. So I invite Amanda to come and introduce you to it.
Ayubowan, Vanakkam. For the last 15 years, I've been living in Sri Lanka, and I've had the opportunity, amazing opportunity, to work with local organizations from actually all out throughout Asia. In about 2011, some of these organizations started talking about the need for an online platform to make it easier to kind of find and connect with other like-minded groups. And so this became kind of the full-time project. This was going to be the main focus. We started looking at the web design. We had a business plan, name, logo. That is not the business plan that I'm going to talk to you about today. Good Market was a side project that started in Sri Lanka in 2012. The idea was a small weekly marketplace where ethical producers and ethical consumers could come together. We thought this would be a very small event. It wouldn't take very much time. Because we'd been working on the online platform, Good Market started with two principles. The first is that it needed to be self-financing and sustainable. The second was that it would be a curated market. All of the participants in the market had to be good for people and good for the planet. They had to go through an application and review process and meet minimum standards for their sector. So like I said, we thought this would be a small thing, maybe 10 vendors. We'd volunteer a few hours a week and focus full-time on the online platform. Market took off in a way that we never expected. And it kept growing. The online platform had to be set aside. In 2013, we expanded to additional days of the week, additional venues. In 2014, our shop opened. And then around 2015, we started to notice some changes. The first was in the type of applications we were getting. So when Good Market started, people would apply because they want to be in the event or they want to have a product in the shop. But we started getting applications from people who didn't want either. They wanted to be part of the Good Market community. They wanted to be recognized as a Good Market vendor. There were service providers. There were vendors from other countries, which was a big surprise. The other thing that started to happen was we started getting a different type of question. Before, people would say, what time do you open? What time do you close? Now people were contacting and saying, I want solar panels on my house. Are there any Good Market vendors that do that? So we'd get questions from local consumers, we got questions from international buyers, and particularly from the vendors themselves. Because if you're doing this kind of work, you want to work with service providers and suppliers and partners that share your values. So it was about this point, 2015, we realized that actually the next step for Good Market was an online platform. So this is where we are now. We're very grateful that we did not start development in 2011 because right now the Good Market platform is based on what the actual needs and requests from the community. Facebook used the same micro-market launch strategy when they started at Harvard. So the platform is a web application with a mobile-first design. And that means you can find it in any browser. There's the address. You can find it comes up in Google search results. And by mobile-first design, it means that you don't have to download it, but when you use it on your phone, it feels like a native application. Currently, more than 450 Good Market approved vendors on the site. That's since this last January. And there's new applications coming in every single day. And just like all of the other initiatives that have been under Good Market, the idea is it has to generate revenue from the very start. So the very first phase of that is a freemium subscription model. That means it's free to be a basic vendor. It will always be free to be a basic vendor. But anyone who wants to do more on the site is able to subscribe and become an active vendor. So both offline and online, Good Market focuses on two main things, curation and connection. On the site, it's the curation aspect that we've got the most development done for. That's kind of the heart of the application. So there's a dynamic application form. There's a dynamic application form. There's an algorithm that helps with the review process and the rating system. And there's a crowdsourced monitoring system. The connection part of the site is still at a baby level. It's still in beta. But people are already starting to use it every day. So we get people checking for contact details. We get people linking through to an e-commerce thing. I no longer have to copy and paste people's contact details and say, oh, you should meet this person, you should meet this person. Now they're able to do it through the site. So we've bootstrapped up to this current level. We've bootstrapped up to this point. And we're now at the point that we need some help to take things up to the next level. The reason we've been able to bootstrap is that the Lanka Good Market is now a fully self-financing, self-sustaining organization. So we have an annual revenue of about $400,000 US a year, starting from nothing. Might not sound like much in New Zealand, but in Sri Lanka, we're quite proud of that. We have about 25 full-time and part-time team members. And that means that they're able to fully look after the event and the shop activities so that we're able to focus on this next step. The Good Market Global platform comes under a benefit corporation that's registered in the US. And the founding team members are actually directors for both of those companies. And we see our role as kind of holding the space until the site is fully community-owned and sustainable. We have a technology partner that's been amazing. They have agreed to a kind of an equity compensation model that's allowed us to develop the site up to this point. And we've qualified for pro bono legal aid, which means that all of the documentation and registration is all in proper order. So what we're looking for now is $500,000 in equity funding. And that's for two main purposes. The first is, and this is by far the most urgent priority, is the next phase of software development that will allow us to be able to do more of the connection features of the site. The immediate things are direct messaging and transactions on the site. And we're looking at blockchain technology for the transaction aspect. The second is to be able to scale beyond Sri Lanka. This has already started. The site has an invitation function, and so people are already inviting each other. And so we have people from other countries that are joining in. But the site is a lot more fun if you have a concentration in one geographical area. So we're looking at community partner models. We have university networks that we're starting to test that out with. And if there's time for questions, I'd really like to talk more about these future steps that we're working on. But right now where we're at is that we have an active, very enthusiastic, and growing community of users. And we're looking for help to provide more services and take it up to the next level. Thank you.
I'll disarm you. To the panel.
Awesome talk, really good. Loved it. Just in terms of you were saying that you've got 450 customers already on the platform. Could you talk a little bit more about how many of those are paying customers, kind of segmentation of those customers, how you're acquiring them and the cost of acquisition and some of the economics around that?
Yeah. So the groups that are already on the platform are different enterprises, right? So huge mix. The part about the basic and active vendor is actually just with our most recent software release, right? So it's very recent, just the last couple of weeks. But all of it has been designed based on their input. So they've been part of focus groups. They're saying what they want. And we've already started to get subscriptions in. So it's too early to be able to say percent. We have targets and kind of estimates of what we think it'll be. But it's been designed based on their input. So yeah.
And customer acquisition, what's the plan for acquiring those customers?
So the thing that's been unexpected is we've done basically no outreach, but we keep getting applications at a rate that we didn't quite expect. A lot of that happens because people can invite. So if you're already on the platform, you can invite somebody else to join. You get credits if they sign up, and you get more credits if they're approved as a vendor, and that boosts you up to the top of the page. So that's one thing that's already happening. That's built into the site. The part that we're looking at as the next step is this kind of community partner model, and also looking at university networks. So community partners are people in groups in the ecosystem. We already have many of them signed up that we're testing it out with. And they could be a membership, they've got their own community. So they could be a membership organization, they could be a retail outlet, incubator, something like that. And so we've been working with them on different ways that the site can be useful to them as a tool. The other is the university partners. We've kind of started testing out with professors and students, which has been fun. So the cost of acquisition in those cases is all voluntary. Yeah.
Very interesting pitch. I'm left with one fundamental question, which is you're taking a market concept, which has worked very well in Sri Lanka, and you're scaling beyond.
Yeah.
How is it going to be online purchases? Is it going to be replicating markets in other countries? What's it going to be? And I thought that was the main thing
Yeah.
that left as a question.
I think the important thing to point out is this is not a marketplace in the sense of e-commerce, right? We actually have e-commerce. We already have e-commerce groups that are on the platform as vendors, right? So there are groups on there that are producers and service providers, and there's all different types of transactions and exchanges that they're looking for, right?
But this is just like how Divine Chocolate started with the Coapa Coco, essentially farmers market, and then grew the chocolate brand. But what I'm trying to see here is you've got good market in Sri Lanka. What's it growing to if you go beyond? It's not an online platform, as you say, but are you trying to simply replicate good market in other countries?
No, so there's no intention. There's no intention to do a shop or to do the event or any of those things in other countries because they exist in other countries. The idea is to have this be a tool. If you look the last few days in the event, one of the things that keeps coming up is people are wanting to connect with each other. So some of that is they want to connect as suppliers, service, actually trade. Some of it is you're just looking for, you know, when you're doing this kind of work, you can feel really alone, right? So there's people just looking for community. They want to connect around a certain issue, right? So we've seen this then going on before Good Market started. We were noticing this desire for people that are working in the social enterprise space to connect with each other, to find each other. And sometimes that finding part is really difficult. So this actually was coming out of a much broader need than the Sri Lankan need. The advantage of being able to start in Sri Lanka is we have a micro market to do the beta testing. But this is not a Sri Lanka specific challenge. This is something that we're all facing.
With the 500,000 of equity investment and it focusing on the development and the sort of progression of this online piece, I'm wondering, you saw this growth and new questions being asked of you that made you think the next step was this online connection point. How did you actually test that people who were engaging with you more around this physical piece would actually want an online platform to be the channel and the type of relationship where they made these connections?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it's really helpful that there's an existing community, right? So all of this is based on what they've been asking for. There'll be things with focus groups, there's things, you know, that everyone's getting together, they're testing things out, they're volunteering, and that makes it really easy to be able to see where we need to adjust. And it's also an agile development process. So we have had, from the time we've started, we've had a software release every 3 weeks, which has been exhausting, but really good, because it means that anytime you notice that something isn't quite right, and we're getting feedback from everyone all the time, then we're able to kind of pivot and be able to adjust. So this is emerging out of how people are responding to it, what they want to use it for, and that makes it really easy to be able to, to make sure that it fits what their needs are.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. Good market. Excellent. Oh, so people running for the door. Go and purchase things from Good Market, I assume. And just in that lull, I will invite our next presenter, Chung-Wei Lin, to introduce you to Our City Love. Yep. Welcome, Chung-Wei.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks.
Go well.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lin from Taiwan. I'm the founder of Our City Love Social Enterprise. Our City Love Social Enterprise is a company. We concentrate on developing assistive technology for the disabled and empowering the social participation of the disabled community. I founded this company 3 years ago. At that time, we got only 3 people. Now, almost 30. And then we have an annual turnover around $10 million at the moment. And today, I'm going to present you a new service here and asking for your support and help to make it real. And actually, I want to say this service is inspired by SEWF. Why? Because I want you to meet Kaiko. Kaiko is our disabled fellow. Last year, I told her that I'm going to fly to Christchurch and join the SEWF. And I asked her, do you want to come with me? And then she said, no problem. Let's find out the accommodation first. So, just like everyone else, we search on hotel.com, Christchurch, New Zealand, and then what we got? Hey, take care. Here for Kaiko, she need accessibility services. So, well, it's a little bit weird because we find no hotels like the Rendezvous, Novotel, Ibis. We find these hotels. No problem. Let's get into it. And then we get into the website of the hotels. Check this picture. Are you sure that it's accessible? We check every photos, and then we try to the official website of the hotel. Still, it's not accessible. You know, Kaiko and I, we have spent about 3 hours searching Booking.com, Trip.go, Airbnb, and even Ctrip, you know. And then we found no result. And then Kaiko told me, well, you better go alone. So this is origin of our new services. We decide to fix this problem. Kaiko and I, we decide to create a website and both on apps so that the disabled people and their families and friends can search for accessible accommodation. And this is what the function about. On this website, you search not just hotels and cities. You get these search items, searching for people with different needs. Visually impaired, hearing impaired, and most important of all, don't forget about the price. And then you get further, you see, wow, voila, the photos of these hotels. And then, you know, these photos also bring us to see all the details of the facilities and services that the hotel will provide. And these things are crucial. And mostly, Kaiko will also share her staying experience in that hotel. And then, this is important. We even take panoramic photos for these hotels' room. Why? Because, you know, for people with disabilities, they need to find out, can they really move in that hotel? Can they climb on the bed on their own? And therefore, these photos are important because what means accessible to you might not be accessible to me. And therefore, this is the most key factors that Kaiko said. She said, okay, I have a great emphasis on bathroom. Why? Because you got to show me the details, the reference standard, so that I can make sure that I can take in a shower on my own. And that means for her privacy and she could live independently. So this is our City Love's social mission. As we all know that, to make a city to be 100% accessible in a very short period of time, it's almost impossible. Scenario like this happens every day at every corner in your city and my cities, right? So what if we could use technology to allocate these accessible resources and services for people when they need it and they can find it? And furthermore, this is actually the origin of our City Love social enterprise. That was in the year of 2012. My students and I, we were on the street. We're witnessing our disabled fellow citizens demonstrating and complaining about the accessibility problem. You know, at that time, we suddenly got an idea. Why? You know, these people, traditionally we think that they are people who need help. They are the people that we should help them. But hey, wait. We want to search for accessibility services and resources in the city. They are the experts. So if we take a new perspective to look at them, we will find out that it's not about disability. They have a different ability in them, only if we could make use of it. So our City Love, we develop technologies to work with these disabled fellows hand in hand to collect cities' accessible environment and services and informations. And we also train them about the knowledge of the accessible design, universal design, and service design so that they could help the service providers to improve their service quality in every details of the processes. So, you know, this is a real cool initiative in our city. Why? Because for the first time, people are not complaining and conflicting with each other. We have a collaborative design idea here. So the hotels, the service provider, they work hand in hand with our disabled fellows and us to make the city to be real inclusive. And here, you know, actually the hotels really love us. We start this idea by the beginning of this February, this year. So in 6 months, we already have 66 hotels join us, and now the number is 89. And then the hotels love us. Why? You know, for hotels owners, building accessible guest room or facilities is no problem, small things. But the problem is to sell it. Think about it. You and I, we are ordinary person, and we get into the hotel, and suddenly we see that, what is this? Accessible toilet? It's weird, and it's also difficult for the hotels to sell rooms like this. And therefore, what is the friendlyhotel.com? We're just like the friendly version of the hotel.com. So we help the hotels build up the information, help them to improve their services, and then we sell the rooms for them and share the commission. And sometimes we also organize, joint marketing event to promote the guest room so that people will be better understand that this room not just suit you, but also suit for your grandpa who is sitting on the wheelchairs. So another thing is that mostly when we are talking about accessible guest room, it's only for wheelchairs, right? But our City Love developed assistive technologies. So we also have technologies that help the hotels to improve their services. For example, for the hearing impaired. Imagine this. You and I, we get into the guest room. If there's any problem, we dial 9 and call. If somebody find us, they will knock the door. But for the hearing impaired, what will happen? They can't really hear and talk, right? And therefore, we got a service which is called Noctify. Knock and notify. And then you see the lights, and they will know that and vibrations, so that they will find it. So we help this whole system to be different. And now we also have start our cooperation with Hotels.com. Why? Because they say that we can help them to improve that embarrassing experience. They link directly to our website and finding out the accessible guest room. So the whole thing is like this. We create a better services. We help the current player to improve the services. And finally, and most important, we donate 50% of our annual profit back to the disabled community to encourage their social participation, to go out, to have fun, to learn and experience different things. And this is the most exciting things. So what is our City Love? For us, we are just look like the bridge between public and private sectors, where we are the connecting point. And the hotels love us, not just because we can help them to serve the disabled, but to serve the aging populations, the aging travelers, and also their families and friends. And so for us, as you can see here, there is a market, right? And for here, this is my dream. These photos are my beloved families. Come on. You see? These are the Chinese. Come on. Allow me more minutes? Yes. You see that there is a great market. Even here during my 3-day stay here in Christchurch, I've seen thousands of the Chinese or Asian families that are traveling here. So there is a plan. We need your help to support us,
Do you want me to ask a question,
to
Dave?
expand our services to more cities. And it's not about money. You could also support me by
When I need you to wrap up.
give me networks. Okay, anyway, so,
Give me control.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
oh,
Question time.
so,
I'm sorry.
right.
Right. I love the passion and the energy. It's why you are here.
Yeah.
But we're way into the question time now.
Okay.
I'd love there to be a bit more interaction there. So
Ask me
there
about
is
the
more
photo.
to the story, not a lot more. I cut him off a little early there. I don't know if anyone noticed. But yeah, I will hand over to the panel now for a couple of questions.
Yeah. That's enough. The last page is here.
Okay.
Ask me.
It's not actually, but that's all right.
That might be my fault. Got a bit enthusiastic.
Thank you for the. Clearly, you're incredibly passionate and committed to trying to address this issue.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was interesting was that two potential groups that could actually be customers where you could commercialise this, you still were using the word help, that you will help them. So with the hotels, you were helping them, that you could help the hotels.com. I'm wondering what the actual size, and not that incredible graph you showed, but maybe starting a bit smaller, just looking in Taiwan, where you're working currently. What is the actual size of the hotel market in terms of those seeking these types of rooms? And how would you frame a value proposition to a hotel to actually pay you, not just give you a commission, but to pay you to actually set this type of piece up?
Okay. So thank you for your question. Can I go back to the last slide? Because they have relationship with that. Actually, the actual market size for tourism, especially for those who are inconvenient and the elderly, no, the next page, is...
This one?
No. No, the last one.
Oh.
Yes, the last one, here. No, previous one. You owe me 30 seconds. Okay, anyway. You see, among the 89 hotels who are cooperating with us at the moment, 50 of them pay us for information registration and trainings. And in these 89, about 70%, they give their accessible guest room for us to sell. And we organize joint marketing event and so on. And we also noticed that there is a strong trend that they want to, because you know, the room is there. If they don't sell it, it will be a waste. And therefore, we are the best partner for them to link, you know, the customer and their corporate reputation and social responsibility. And just like your first words, health. You know, here is actually the essence of the Our City Love, is that, you know, traditionally we think that these disabled are people who need help. But through our actions, through our business, you know, they feel that they can also help somebody else's. They are professional, and they could also contribute to the society. And you know that that sense of achievement, and that sense of achievement brings dignity to them. And for us, that is the essence of social enterprise, having real inclusion. Dignity is the most important thing.
I'm afraid we don't have time for another question. Sorry. Thank you, Lynn. We don't have time for any more questions, but thank you very much for it. It's infectious, isn't it? Not too infectious, I hope. Davin, don't get any ideas. Okay. Fabulous. I really like the message I loved hearing first from Chong Wei Lin was around access being important, but the vision being about inclusion. And those are just really important. We sometimes start to make change, and it's really in service to a larger change. All right. Okay. Let's give a little space for that to settle. But next up, continuing our highly international night as a Scotsman represents a New Zealand organisation, we're going to have a South African, Irish, Australian come up next. And so to introduce you to Thread Harvest, here is Davin de Bruin. Go well.
I want to share with you a story about someone who had everything society said he needed to be successful, and yet they felt completely unsatisfied and unfulfilled. They had pursued a life of success, yet what they were craving was this life of significance. And so they stepped out, they risked everything to pursue that life of significance. And the reason they did it was because they didn't want to get to the end of their lives, be on their deathbed, and have this question plague their mind. What if? What if I'd stepped out? What if I'd pursued that dream? What could my life have looked like? Now, who am I talking about? Well, probably 90% of the people in this room. This is a social enterprise world forum, after all. But if I'm honest, I find myself in the story. You see, I stepped out back in 2012 to launch a fashion label that would use the profits to empower disadvantaged communities. I thought that this was the greatest way that I'd make a difference. But as I kind of went through the journey, I realized that there was actually a better way. And how we discovered that was we went through a business accelerator program. This was actually the first product we were getting ready to launch with. And what happened through the program was this question was posed to us: how are you manufacturing your product? To which we said, in China. Isn't that where everyone makes everything? And the questions that followed left us feeling a little bit embarrassed. Who's making it? How's it being made? What are the conditions? To which we had no response. And so they challenged us. They said, look, guys, we love the idea of profits for purpose, but you can't be an organization that's about empowering on the one hand when you could be exploiting on the other. So we said, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. Ethical fashion. What the hell is ethical fashion? And so that question actually led us down a path of discovering what the true problem at hand was. And what we discovered shocked us. What we found was that the problem existed within the industry itself. Now, did you know that the fashion industry is the second biggest contributor to pollution in the world, second to oil? I'm sure you all did. That around, you obviously know this one, 6,000 kilograms of clothing goes into landfill every 10 minutes, just in Australia. And then when it comes to the exploitation of men, women, and children within the supply chain, it's one of the worst offenders. So now, what is the solution to this problem? ThreadHarvest, an online ethical fashion marketplace. As you can see, what we look to do at ThreadHarvest is source brands that have, obviously fashionable, and that have created their product in a sustainable and ethical way. Now, whoa, Davin, speak English. Ethical, sustainable, what do you mean? What I mean by that is they've used production methods that look at alleviating people out of poverty and the environment out of pollution. Okay? And so what we then look to do is sell these brands' products on our online platform. And this is where we look to connect the customer to the story. And this is very important for two reasons, okay? Firstly, we obviously want to educate our customer on the importance of ethical fashion and make them aware about the difference that they're making. But secondly, what we want to do is we want to build a relationship between our customers and their clothing. Because that relationship is what will create a bond which will ultimately slow down the fast fashion mentality that we see taking place in our society today. And so our goal at ThreadHarvest is to make our customers look good, whilst at the same time do good, to ultimately feel good. Okay, so now I'm sure you're wondering, okay, talk to me about impact. How do you measure this impact and how do you report it? Well, we make use of our impact badges. And our impact badges are simply standards that our brands aspire to and achieve. Okay? Now, not only are they the standards by which we vet our brands, they're also the mechanism in which we measure and report the impact that our brands are having. Okay? And as you can see, they include the likes of empowering women, employing the marginalized, organic, fair trade, so on and so forth. And how we measure this, I'll give you a case study example. We use Indosol as one of our examples. They're a footwear label. And basically what they do is they're based in Bali, and there's a lot of tires that get chucked into landfill. So they take the tires and they repurpose them to create the soles of their shoes. And so to date, we've saved 100 tires from landfill. We've had other areas of impact include over 68,000 minutes of fair trade labor, 2,620 trees planted, and so on and so forth. So this is the impact that our organization is having to date. But now, why impact badges? Is there a bigger purpose? And the answer is yes. You see, what we've discovered is that the word ethical is a very big word, and it's very, very complex. So what we found is that our impact badges have managed to break it down for our customers, to be able to put language around it so they can actually see the depth of this word. But second to that, it also helps in defining ethical. Because once again, what's ethical to me might not be what's ethical to you. And so our impact badges allow our customers to shop their values, to shop what matters most to them. Okay, so now I'm sure you're thinking, okay, this is great, love the idea, love the mission, everything behind it, but what has the traction been to date? And so as you'll see through the numbers, I'll quickly take you through them. There's 3 key numbers that you need to understand online retail. They are your conversion rate, your online sessions, and your average order value. And so these 3 figures have delivered us the following numbers. As of last year, we ticked over just over 56,000 site sessions, which resulted in around $40,000 in revenue. And that was a 71% increase on the previous year. Now, for us to hit our next year's targets, we need to ramp those numbers up. We need to take our conversion rate from 0.8 to 1.2, our site sessions from 1,000 to 5,500, and our average order value from 95 to 100. These, by the way, are very doable, very, very doable with the investment that we're looking for. And so we're looking to hit a total revenue of next year of $343,000. Now, this sounds great, but what is the one area that most companies fall back down on? It's execution. It's great to have a big vision. It's great to have a great strategy, but unless you can execute on it, you're going to fall short. And what determines how a company can execute is its team. So now I'd like to introduce you to the team at ThreadHarvest. It includes myself. I have a background in supply chain and logistics management. Don't ask me why. But I'm also the visionary and the dreamer at the team. We have Neri, who's got a background in e-commerce and marketing. She was actually the general manager for a very large online women's clothing label for quite some time. She's also the mama bear of the team and kind of cracks the whip and gets shit done in the company. We've got Dan, social impact extraordinaire. He's actually got a master's in peace and conflict, and also the oldest soul on the team, enjoys a good port from time to time. Henry, for a bit of diversity in the team, but also has an engineering background and a phenomenal negotiator. And last but certainly not least, Benny Vance, our head of IT, literally a technical genius. Like, you sometimes need a translator to understand what he's saying. If you can think it, this man can code it. So now, what does this team and this organization need to take it to mainstream, to take it to compete against the best of the best? We need to raise $1.2 million. No objections? Great. Okay. So what we aim to use that for, a couple of things. Firstly, obviously, product, restocking our existing brands, as well as bringing on quite a few additional ones we have in the pipeline. Developing our own brand, which is quite far down the track. Obviously, warehousing and logistics to hold the product, ship it, and do the distribution. We need resources in terms of the team and the people to actually execute against our strategies. And marketing to actually take this message and drive it out and connect with our customers. With this funding, it will ultimately take us one step closer to achieving our vision. Now, that vision is to lead a revolutionary change for people and planet through ethical and sustainable fashion. If you identify with this vision, then I invite you to come have a conversation with me. And let's discuss how we can talk about creating lives of both success, but more importantly, significance. Thank you.
How'd I do? If I made another Westwood? Okay, so that's good. Who's up first? Push the fashion questions to Dave Woods. That works.
I think there's, as a presentation, you don't give enough on how you're going to use the money. You should have spent more of the time on why you want 1.2 million, how you will use it. And I thought you, frankly, lacked a little empathy in the way you presented the team. I thought you didn't get the audience quite right in the way you presented the team you were going to have working with you. So I admire your concept. We've actually got something quite similar in New Zealand at the moment, which is also looking for funding. So, good luck. I think this is a good concept. I think it can work, but there were an awful lot of questions as to some of the details from your presentation.
So, do you mind me asking, what do you mean by lacked empathy for the team?
When you said Henry Chen represented diversity in your team. That was an insult to a lot of the people in the room.
Oh, wow. And let me just apologize then to every single person here. I'm terribly sorry. I meant no offense or disrespect by it. And I understand that I've obviously offended a lot of people, so you have my utmost and sincerest apologies. And I retract that. I'm sorry.
Just going to focus in on the customer segments and pick up. So you talked about wanting to slow down fast fashion, and part of taking on the investment was to take this mainstream. I'm a little bit confused then about a stack of what you were talking about felt more like the customer segment that would actually engage are those that are already converted, who already are looking for ways to ethically shop and to find these kind of products. So can you talk to me a little bit more about who you actually see as those customer segments and what that time frame might be on actually going from those who already believe in this and want the opportunity to find the products in an easier way through to that mainstream growth?
Yeah, that's okay. That's a really good question. So what we're finding in the market is, and I'm sure we've all seen it, but there's been a rise of this idea of the conscious consumer. You've obviously got your hardcore ethical shoppers, which make up a smaller percentage. But then as kind of time ticks along, what we're finding is, as with technologies going forward and we're starting to see what's going on behind the scenes and we're starting to be educated on supply chain practices and the idea of ethical consuming and how our planet's being affected and all the loads of social discussions we've had today, this is something that kind of everyone's starting to get on board with. So what we've done in our research is we've seen a massive growth in the shift towards ethical consumerism and people wanting to know how and where their products are made. So we're not really going for that really small percentage. We're kind of bracing out for those people who maybe don't have an idea as to the kind of extent that we do. I know I said some stats and everyone's like, yep, heard that. But there's a big population out there who have no idea. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it palatable to them and try and bring them along the journey and educate them slowly on the process, just as we've been, because we were completely ignorant when we came into it. But as we've kind of stepped in, we've realized just what a big issue this is. And so now we're trying to bring people on that journey as well. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly here, but yeah, so there's a much bigger market that we're going through. There's not much time, but I can definitely talk you through that a little bit later.
Cool. We will go for one more if it's there, though.
Just a question about the sort of customers and the revenue model. You talked about sort of wanting to raise 1.2 million and the target of $345,000 by the end of next financial year. Could you explain sort of what your margins on that 300,000 is and how that gets you to the point of the valuation that you're putting on the company now in terms of your future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two main aspects to the model of our business. We do traditional wholesale, where our margins are around between 57 to 60%. But then we also do drop shipping, where we actually bring the customer on, bring the brand on board, import their product and ship, and they get the order and they do the distribution. So we take a 30% commission from that. So from the traditional wholesale, we are making really, really good margins, which can allow us to continue to grow, reinvest back into the business and become an actual sustainable business. I think that's really the main goal that we're at. We're not trying to position ourselves as a feel sorry for us. We're trying to position ourselves mainstream, compete against your ASOSs and your Iconics and what have you, and really go toe-to-toe with them on a profit level. But we want to use those profits to invest back and actually create the difference we all want to see.
Excellent. Thank you, Davin.
My apologies once again, seriously. I'm really sorry.
I've got it. I've holstered it. Fantastic. Oh, we're losing a few more people. There's one pitch to go. It's a real goodie. Okay. It's with great pleasure. I've lost sight. Oh, thank you. Thank goodness. I thought you'd gone. With great pleasure, I introduce Dmitry Silitsky to introduce ThoughtWired to the audience. Come on, Dmitry.
This is my cousin Sam. Sam was born completely paralyzed. At 14, he's still unable to speak or controllably move because of severe cerebral palsy. He's unable to express himself and is completely dependent on his parents and caregivers for everything while being fully lucid. For him, it means that he's never gone to school. It's nearly impossible for him to make friends outside the family, and all of vocational opportunities are out of reach. And his parents had to drastically change their lifestyles to care for Sam, and they live under ongoing stress of not really knowing what their son's needs and desires are. But it's not just Sam or my family. By the most conservative estimates, there are at least 6 million people around the world that are unable to communicate because of profound physical disabilities, such as severe cerebral palsy, ALS or motor neuron disease, and spinal cord injuries. For example, in New Zealand and Australia, right here, about 25,000. In the US, more than 260,000 people. These are people whose disability left them physically locked in, but mentally they're present and sharp. At ThoughtWired, we use brain sensing technology to enable people like Sam to communicate and interact with the world. Our solution is called Nous. Nous is software that allows you to control computers using your mind. Put on a headband, like this one, and your brain activity will be sent to a computer or a mobile device. Then Nous interprets that activity and turns it into useful functions. But what kinds of functions? Anything you can use a computer for. Email, speech, home automation, motorized wheelchairs, even bionic limbs and exoskeletons. Right now, though, our primary focus is robust communication for those with the most profound physical disabilities. It means being able to choose between yes and no, or other types of answers, and interact with existing applications, whether it is communication grids or your average Facebook, Spotify, you name it. Our team was purpose-built to make it happen. My co-founders and I came together 6 years ago to start this venture, and today we're committed more than ever. Since then, we doubled in numbers, have 3 PhDs leading their fields locally and internationally, and have a broad range of experiences beyond just science and tech, but user experience, marketing, social enterprise, and international business. But most importantly, we're all passionate about creating transformational change in the world. Traditionally, assistive technology systems cost thousands to tens of thousands of dollars up front and commonly lack training and ongoing support. This leads to poor adoption and frequent abandonment. In fact, up to 75% of systems that do get deployed become abandoned because of poor service and poor user experience. Our approach is different. We'll be offering Nous on a subscription for outcome basis. For $199 a month, our customers will receive everything they need to be successful. The suitable brain sensing device, like that headband, the Nous software with its frequent updates, and initial training and ongoing support. We're starting direct to customers here in New Zealand in our beta market. We'll then expand internationally via channel partners. These are organizations that already provide services and technology to people with disabilities, and then scale further by bundling Nous with world-leading speech-generating devices. In 3 years, we aim to have at least 4,000 customers in 5 key markets, which translates into an annual run rate of over 9 million and an ability to turn a profit. On the back of breakthrough research and development, Nous has gone from proof of concept to being piloted in market today. Nearly 1,000 people have experienced Nous through interactive demos. We worked with 3 special education schools and a number of other organizations around the country where we trialed Nous with potential users and involved them, their families, specialists and teachers in co-designing the solution so it meets their needs. And our technology is proven. Now we're focusing on user experience, onboarding, and stability. We're currently in the middle of a 6-month-long ACC-supported pilot, and at the end of which we expect a precedent-setting case study. Our pilot participant is already able to access a computer for the first time in her life through Nous, considering that the 6 solutions that they trialed before failed. She's able to play games, she's learning to communicate beyond yes and no, and she's doing all of that in the comfort of her home with support of her family and carers. But that's just the beginning. When Nous is deployed at scale, our impact is going to be threefold. It starts with the individual, like Sam or this person I just told you about. For them, it means, For them, it means better health and wellness, obviously ability to use language, access to education, and connect with others. For their families, it means more meaningful relationship with that individual that they love and support, but also less stressful, healthier lives. And in general, for the community and society, better social integration, better health outcomes, and reduction in care costs. But to make that happen, we need fuel. So we're raising a seed round of 800K to go to market over the next year. We will deploy this capital to go to market, make our first sales and marketing hires and set up a delivery team, grow the product team to execute on the roadmap and respond to customer feedback. And also it allows us to access additional R&D grant funding, something that we successfully have done 3 times in the past. At ThoughtWide, we believe that the world can be made universally accessible to everybody, regardless of their physical abilities or limitations. We can empower people like my cousin Sam to live healthier, happier lives by being able to communicate and interact independently. And now it is your opportunity to make it happen with us. If you'd like to join us, come talk to me after these presentations. Thank you. No, front. Hey, sweet.
Awesome, great work, really appreciate it. My question would be, you've been on the road with this for a while. It's kind of deep technology. That's a long and difficult journey, and I really respect that you've been on that journey. If you've got the trial running with a single user now, can you tell me how you're going to bridge the gap from there to a product that can be sold commercially?
That's just a case study. So there's not just one person. So we have 3 systems deployed with families for long term. We've conducted several trials before with a whole number of people. There was a number, it's about 400 sessions in total. We've just started another group program with 8 individuals with motor neuron disease in the Auckland area. But the key there is something that we're starting to notice is in the past for a long time, it was a matter of figuring it out, making the technology work. What we're starting to hear now is these families telling us after the first or the second interaction, we want this, can we keep it? And similarly, some professionals that we've built relationships with now coming to us and saying, hey, I have people who could use this, when can we start? So, but for us, the important thing is to make sure that those individuals are successful. That 75% statistic, which is real, is traditionally, money down the drain, effectively, because there's not enough support, experience is not good enough. So we just want to nail that, and we're pretty much there before we go out and actually, feel comfortable charging for the product. But, to go back and answer your question, we're pretty much there. So it's not just a single person.
Awesome. Great.
Sort of following on from that, I would imagine with this type of technology, again, you'd expect it would be quite complicated, and part of that 75% of people abandoning things is it's just too difficult to engage. So how are you talked about that you've got some user experience people in the mix. How are you actually doing that training component, supporting families to be able to know how to best use this type of amazing technology?
Great question. And the way we've done it, and what taken a lot of the time, is actually understanding what's currently wrong. with this type of technology, because the idea of, and the technology behind the science behind it, translating brainwaves into actions, has been around for decades. But the reason most of the room doesn't know about it is because the experience wasn't there. And so we effectively embedded ourselves in communities and organizations where we spend, hundreds, thousands of hours working with them, trying to understand that, and come up not just with the product, the piece of software, and source the hardware that is easy enough to use, but also come up with the necessary training and support to actually, so those families can take it and run with it effectively. And that's what we're seeing now with these systems that are deployed. They can do it. It's a headband this simple. You put it on like a sweatband. The software tells you if it's working or not. They have the strategies around learning and supporting their individual. And that's what I mean by, focus on user experience. That's what we really want to nail, because that's where the success is. Piece of tech is tech. It's hard, but it's nothing without the experience that works.
Great presentation, Dimitri. Thank you. I'm going to focus on one thing. You put up a slide that said $199 a month. So I was wondering, does that make you a low-cost provider, high-quality provider? Where do you sit in that range versus global competition? And how much of that $199 per month goes on updates, maintenance, overhead costs?
Great question, which I was expecting, so thanks for that. So in terms of in terms of the actual numbers, happy to go through it and how that looks over time. The key there is, in terms of positioning, the overall model of subscription is quite new to this space. So typically what happens is there is a piece of kit that is developed, specifically for a purpose, and overpriced, into space, basically, where a typical laptop with a piece of software is wrapped into a package, and all of a sudden it costs $10,000. So what we're trying to do with the subscription model is to lower that barrier. It is still, you can't call it, what would be the word, available out of pocket for for a lot of those families, because what happens is, if you have someone with a severe disability in a family, half of those families, if not more, are in financial hardship. But what it does mean is that the barrier to entry is much lower, whether you're seeking external funding or not. So that's a big point there. In terms of the, what the cost is, the breakdown, our biggest costs are the service component, right, to make sure that it works. But as we go through the development of the product and we refine and optimize these processes, we can see, and we have a roadmap for productizing a lot of that. So if we're starting with an allowance of 20 hours per year of initial training and then on-call support, the year after, we're dropping that more than by half in our projections, because we can see the roadmap of how we can bake in a lot of the training into the product itself, so the family or other support that already exists around the individual can deliver that. And so that's just a matter of, where the technology bit comes in and becoming clever with that. Hopefully that answers that question somewhat, but in terms of, going through numbers, happy to talk afterwards, with some spreadsheets.
Okay, very precisely done. We're just running to time. So with that, I'll say thank you again to Dimitri and ThoughtWorks. Well done. Okay, excellent. That's 5. Really glad to see that kind of breadth of how impact can occur. So it could be massive, like taking someone from not communicating to now being able to communicate, which is just such an extraordinary leap. But some of the change that we can make through better informed decisions can start the changes that we also want to see. And that range is certainly present in the World Forum as a whole, in the impact investment opportunities we see around the world, and here in New Zealand. So thank you all for being part of it. There are some other important thank yous as well. First and foremost to our panel for taking the time to spend here and ask such good questions. When we let them ask questions, Lynn, it's just disgraceful. They really cut you out. I'd like to thank the team at the piano who've been excellent all day in making space, and in particular the multimedia team, the AV people have been excellent to work with and very patient with a series of last-minute changes that you can expect. And I'd also like to thank all of our presenters once more for taking the time and actually getting prepped and preparing ourselves. Across the teams, Akin has been involved here, but also TDI. So Caroline and Bessie and Megan, who can't be here for the event, have been wonderful. And on our side, Lingy and Emma, thank you very much as well. Thanks a lot. Brilliant. Those of you sitting with feedback forms, we'd really welcome you in the foyer area. If you suddenly realize now, you really should have had one of those. So please speak to Lingy on the way out, speak to me or Emma at the edge of the foyer, and we'll fix that up. And otherwise, thank you all for being part of it.